This Samsung tablet is being quite controversial for taking several steps backwards. Of course, it also takes steps forward, but it will depend a lot on your taste, if you agree with the changes or not. Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time we have a full review of the Galaxy Tab S11 Ultra. Let's get started. Well, as I said, the truth is that this tablet may disappoint in some cases or surprise in others. Its launch price in Mexico has been 26,999 pesos approximately, $1,199. That is to say, it maintains the same price as last generation. At least it has not gone up, which would have been even more controversial. The 512GB version is a bit more expensive, and in some markets a 1TB version is also available, but in Mexico this is not available. One positive aspect that continues with Samsung is that the S Pen is included right in the box. Additionally, it introduces a brand new and more accurate design, featuring a new tapered tip, which is an interesting change that is both aesthetically pleasing and provides a nice tactile experience, even though it lacks Bluetooth. We'll delve into more details about the S Pen shortly. However, for now, I want to mention that the accessory which allows us to use this tablet as a computer has regressed in several ways. It is worth noting, though, that it is indeed more affordable now. We are discussing this particular one, which happens to be the slim keyboard. Interestingly, Samsung has removed the other choices. So in this current generation, only this keyboard or the case is available for purchase. In other words, the detachable keyboard option that existed in previous generations is no longer offered, where you could easily keep the back cover attached to the accessory while detaching it from the keyboard, and it is only available in this tilt configuration. It is also a keyboard without trackpad, so if you were used to the keyboard accessory of past generations, if you're going to feel quite frustrated with this one, because the truth is that it takes many steps backwards. Although I insist it is more economical. In Mexico, this additional accessory is sold separately at a price of 2,998 pesos. So I think it's a good compliment, but for the most demanding, it's going to be too little. But, well, we are going to describe this tablet in detail, point by point, so that you can provide your opinion, share your comments, and decide whether it's a good thing for you or not. At the design level, this is where we will discover the main changes. Similar to many of Samsung's current products, this one also emphasizes being slimmer and lighter. This isn't necessarily a downside, but let's take our time to get to know it gradually. It features an enhanced aluminum frame, which means it's going to feel extremely sturdy. This tablet is not likely to break or bend easily or anything similar to that. It's also IP68 rated. This is unusual in tablets, so we highlight it. One of the most positive aspects of this tablet is its durability. If you accidentally spill a glass of water on it, there's no need to worry because it will survive without any issues. Even if you were to accidentally drop it into a tank full of water, the tablet is designed to withstand such situations and will hold up just fine. This feature is not very common in tablets, so I think it's worth highlighting. Another significant change that stands out is the notch. Previously, there was a noticeable notch on this part, but now it's made much smaller. This change was possible because they decided to remove one of the two front cameras that were included in the previous generation of the tablet. We'll discuss image quality later, but in terms of design, it's a step forward because there's less discomfort when viewing. I like that. It still comes in dark gray and silver, but the dimensions have changed, especially the thickness, now at 5.1 millimeters. It used to be 5.4 millimeters, already thin, and now it's even thinner, providing a very comfortable feel when holding the tablet. It has also reduced its weight significantly. Previously, it weighed 700 grams, but now it comes in at 692 grams. Just for reference. Interestingly, with the keyboard attached, this generation and the last weigh almost the same, indicating the keyboard isn't very optimized. They could have made it lighter, which would have made the combo lighter too. Preferred that since a tablet should be more portable or lighter than a computer. But if you're going to find laptops of this price as well, more or less, when you combine tablet and keyboard at the same time, specifically talking about the keyboard, we're going to find a good feel. The typing. The feedback has been quite positive overall, let's just put it this way. The stroke feels like it's of good quality. However, keep in mind that there are no backlit keys, which is something you might typically find on a computer. That said, it does include an LED light to indicate when you have the shift function or a specific function key enabled, which is a helpful feature. Speaking of which, this device comes with a variety of keys that enable us, for instance, to increase the brightness, adjust the volume, and even set up specific shortcuts for up to 3 different applications. However, what Samsung really wants to emphasize about this keyboard is the addition of the Galaxy key. With this key, you'll be able to call Gemini, making it an excellent way to work more efficiently and boost your productivity. If you're already incorporating Gemini into your workflow, then here you can simply activate it with a single touch, and that's all there is to it. This step might be appealing depending on the kind of user you are, but personally, I would have preferred to also have the trackpad accessory available and the option to completely separate these two components. Additionally, take into account that at present there is no space provided to store the S Pen right here. Then, in a manner similar to the iPad, which is something I personally dislike, the S Pen needs to be attached on the top. This makes it quite likely to become detached, fall off, and possibly get damaged or even lost. Therefore, in my opinion, Samsung has taken a step backwards in this regard, which is something I was not pleased with. I don't quite understand why they decided to remove it. The S Pen on the back, I believe it was the perfect spot where it would be well protected, but perhaps they aim to resemble the iPad more, I'm not sure. Do you really? Please let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Now, when we talk about connectivity, we notice something that remains unchanged from the previous generation, which is a USB-C 3.2 Gen 1 port. This is quite cool, but I've been proposing this for several generations now, and I still don't see it implemented here. I would have preferred to see two USB-C ports on an Ultra tablet, as I believe it would truly benefit from it. I would really appreciate having two USB ports, especially since there's now an enhanced mode, which we'll discuss later. This mode allows you to connect to an external monitor, and at the same time, you might need a second port for connecting another accessory, like a USB stick, an adapter, or something similar. Therefore, I think it would be very useful to add two ports. However, unfortunately, we don't see that feature included here yet. To finish with this block with respect to wireless connectivity, we will find Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5. 3. In both cases, I think it is within the expected. Let's briefly discuss the screen, as it hasn't changed much from the previous model. It still has a large 14.6-inch display with a resolution of 2960 by 1848 pixels and a proportion. The specific density is more or less 3 to 2 to 2, so it is a somewhat unusual ratio but a little wider than, for example, usually use the iPad. The specific density is 293 pixels per inch, which at the distance at which we usually see a tablet will go quite well. It is a highly detailed image featuring dynamic AMOLED 2X technology, which means it provides vibrant colors and high contrast. A significant change from the last generation is in the maximum brightness, which now reaches 1600 nits. Previously, it was 930 nits, which was already quite good for a tablet used indoors. However, now I believe it will enhance even further, allowing for excellent readability outdoors as well. Additionally, you should take into account that it features an anti-reflective finish, which is exceptionally good. While the lights behind you aren't entirely eliminated, they are significantly reduced, enhancing the screen's performance. This makes the screen one of its most impressive features. You'll experience something remarkable that is rarely matched, especially in a laptop. Furthermore, it supports HDR in the content. So, if, for example, you want to use it to watch Netflix and other things in high quality, you will definitely be able to enjoy a great way. Let's discuss the sound now, as it's another aspect where we continue to have a great experience, although without many changes. For several generations, we have been enjoying excellent sound quality. This particular one will be no exception to the rule. It features 4 integrated speakers, providing an experience that is not only extremely powerful but also deeply immersive. It still lacks a headphone jack, as expected, since in a product so slim, it's challenging to find something like that included. However, it's worth noting something that feels like a step backward. They've removed the haptic engine, meaning it no longer. It won't create any vibration, which I know some users might not notice if they never felt their tablet vibrate before, so they won't miss this feature. But if you're a gamer who enjoyed feeling vibrations while playing, that's no longer an option here. And Samsung used to have this as a positive feature. If you were comparing it to the iPad, which hasn't included a haptic engine, perhaps Samsung noticed this and thought, the iPad doesn't feature one. Well, also simply don't, as you begin to realize. It appears that Samsung has drawn a bit too much inspiration from Apple's iPad, making certain modifications that I personally, I can't say I agree. Luckily, at the software level, it still offers several useful options. The iPad's new features, like Dolby Atmos, a 9-band equalizer, and options like volume normalization and optimized dialogue make it more appealing. Believe me, these are quite useful, especially when watching content with poorly mixed audio. Now that podcasts have become incredibly famous, there are times when the content is played at a very low volume. With the volume normalization function, trust me, it really helps a lot to improve the listening experience. So these are tools that you will truly appreciate, and fortunately Samsung has not removed them. And considering it doesn't support wired headphones, the good news is you can still enjoy wireless headphones that support high-resolution codecs such as aptX, LD, and even Samsung's own SSC codec. Concerning the microphones, this setup includes two integrated at the top and one on the left side. Overall, I believe this configuration will be quite effective for video calls. Now, let's discuss the front camera. As I mentioned, in this instance, it has been reduced to just one camera. If you've seen my reviews of previous generations, you know I often criticize the dual front camera because I didn't find it necessary. Thankfully, in this situation, Samsung has made a wise choice from my perspective. However, the money saved by removing the front camera, I would have preferred to see invested elsewhere. In this case, I noticed they simply removed it, but I don't see. Mirrored that change in another positive shift. In this case, it's a 12 megapixel ultra wide angle camera with f2.2 aperture. It's not the brightest in the world, but for video calls, I think it's going to be fine. It can even record video in 4K at 30 frames per second. So let's take a quick example. Well, this will be pretty much the picture quality using this tablet to record the content. I think it looks great for video calls, which is what you're going to use it for the most. The quality looks great. I don't think this camera is meant for selfies or similar uses, so we won't delve deeply into that. On the back, it maintains the dual camera strategy with a 16mm ultra-wide angle with 8 megapixels and f2.2 aperture, and the main 25mm with 13 megapixels and f2.0 aperture, plus autofocus. I think tablets, I don't usually focus too much on the cameras because for my type of user, these cameras will only serve to scan some document, take pictures of the blackboard or something like that, and that's it. However, most users have the option to utilize their cell phone camera and then transfer the pictures to the tablet if they wish to use them there. Therefore, we won't go into too much detail about those features either. Additionally, they have the capability to record K video, which is quite impressive. So I believe the quality of the cameras meets what we would expect. I'm not going to get overly critical here as I might in other areas of this tablet. Let's have a discussion about the software now, since I believe it's crucial to the overall user experience. In this instance, Samsung includes One UI 8.0, which is built on Android 16. This setup also provides users with an impressive 7 years of software updates, along with 7 years of security patches. This level of support is among the best you can find in the industry. It ensures that tablet will have a long and beneficial lifespan, continuously receiving new features and enhancements over time, while Samsung also has. There's a common tendency to keep new features exclusive to the new models, without fully bringing them to the older models. However, I believe we can somewhat understand this approach a bit more clearly. This tablet features an integrated new extended DeX mode, which allows you to connect an external monitor via its USB-C port. Unlike a mere screen duplicate, this setup lets you utilize the monitor as an additional screen, similar to how Windows operates. You can move some applications to the external screen, enabling you to continue working on the main screen with other applications simultaneously. So in this regard, it indeed provides a more PC-like experience. In fact, when you have DeX mode enabled, you'll notice that apps open in a windowed mode. This allows you to have multiple apps open simultaneously, enhancing your productivity significantly. However, it's important to note that the quality of these apps is still far from matching what a PC offers, or even reaching the level of what an iPad provides. It's indeed true that Samsung has engaged in various collaborations and additional endeavors to attempt to integrate an increasing number of high-quality applications. For instance, they provide you with free trials and partnerships with well-known apps like GoodNotes, Clip Studio, LumaFusion, and recently Notion. I must emphasize, these are excellent quality apps that, fortunately, will function well on this Galaxy Tab. Nonetheless, I must mention that on the iPad, there are even more sophisticated applications available such as Photoshop and Illustrator, or even Apple's own apps like Logic or Final Cut, which, in my opinion, give the iPad a wider appeal that, unfortunately, we haven't seen on the Galaxy Tab yet. So what I really want to convey to you is that if you are someone who is seeking highly professional features at the app level, it's crucial to check whether the app you prefer is accessible on the Galaxy Tab or not. If you are more inclined towards multimedia consumption, perhaps note-taking and basic editing, then it might meet your requirements. However, it's essential to understand what type of user you truly are, as this will be very important. Certainly, when you have One UI, it offers a wide array of options at the customization level. This includes various gestures, floating windows, and something particularly noteworthy for a tablet is its video call effects feature. For instance, in applications like WebEx, Zoom, Google Meet, WhatsApp, Microsoft Teams, and more, it allows you to apply filters to change your background, as well as adjust the brightness up or down. This is a positive aspect that enhances the user experience significantly. Even to have various reactions there while you're on the video call, no matter what app you're using, you can still express yourself. I like that. and the entire Galaxy suite. This can become appealing depending on the user type. For instance, if it provides a chat assistant for translation, it also offers voice and image interpretation for translating and note transcription, which I find most attractive. For example, if you're using it to take meeting or class notes, having the entire transcript to search for specific keywords is very useful. We also see the Notes wizard, which allows you to reformat your notes and perform similar tasks. And what the Galaxy Suite excels at, without a doubt, is its generative editing capabilities. Take note, for instance, of how, in this particular case, we are going to move this element around and then we're going to resize it, for instance. Additionally, we're going to attempt to remove these tattoos to see how it performs. Let me select it once more because it seems like you didn't choose it very accurately. Okay, there it is. Let's say we want to delete that, and let's also remove the clock to see how it turns out. That's all we need to do. Now let's simply set generate and wait a brief moment for Galaxy to work its magic. One fascinating aspect of having a large screen is that it allows us to view a comparative display with just a single touch. Look, here we can zoom in to observe how the size appeared before and how it has been enlarged now. And look, for instance, here we have removed the tattoos. By selecting it with a bit more patience, I believe I could have completely removed it. And take note, the clock has also been removed in a really excellent manner. I think Galaxy is fantastic for image editing, and when it's complemented with the S Pen, it's just perfect. Additionally, you should note that you can use the S Pen for AI selection. For instance, if you're browsing and looking at an event either on your calendar or perhaps on a web page, you can simply select it and an event button will automatically appear. This happens because it intelligently detects that you're discussing such a topic. And watch closely, it automatically retrieves the day's information and even more. The calendar view is another great example of how Samsung optimizes things really well. For instance, when you add an event, it doesn't redirect you to a different page, but allows you to simply start adding the information right here, without losing the view you had. Additionally, in the calendar, you can also make annotations in this easy manner. Samsung software is consistently very well optimized. The File Explorer will be incredibly useful when you're working, particularly because it allows you to expand folders and similar items. You can then easily drag these items to a different location of your choice, such as another folder or elsewhere. This flexibility makes organizing your files much more convenient and efficient. Interesting how Samsung optimizes its apps to use space well. On the lock screen, you can also add some available widgets, which is cool. In this particular case, these are system widgets, which can actually become quite useful. In fact, it's worth noting that we could also rotate the view, allowing the widgets to be displayed in a sort of small sidebar. This means you have the flexibility to choose the layout for this lock screen according to your preference. It's a subtle change that was not available in the previous generation. Additionally, the notification panel is now slightly more compact and aesthetically pleasing, offering a much more visually appealing experience compared to what we had in earlier generations. This has clearly improved a lot. As you can see, we're now able to launch decks. You can connect to an external display or choose to create a desktop. In this case, we'll be able to have multiple desktops. For instance, on this desktop, I have these applications open, but if I switch over to the other desktop, you'll notice that I don't have any applications open there. However, I can easily open Google Play or the clock, for example, without any issues. And now I can switch between this desktop that has a certain combination of windows and another desktop. So I can improve my productivity this way. For example, here on this desktop, I'm going to open the gallery and the internet browser. In this instance, I can switch between various desktops. Ideally, I would love to have the ability to switch desktops using a quick gesture because I believe that the productivity isn't yet as extensive as it could be. If only we could make a simple gesture to transition between desktops, it would enhance productivity significantly. Even we won't explore the option of double tapping one of the buttons to switch desktops. Plus, the animation is somewhat slow. Then you need to wait for the animation to finish before it reacts. I think it could use some optimization, but the concept is great. Regarding having multiple desktops to work with several windows simultaneously, this feature is integrated directly into the multiple desktops option available here. Observe that applications now start by default in a windowed mode, which helps to utilize space efficiently. However, if you prefer, you can click this button to open the application in full screen, allowing it to function in a more immersive format. Additionally, you have the option to restore it back to its original state. Moreover, through this feature, you can adjust the screen layout to better utilize the available space, making it easier to manage and accommodate multiple applications in a more straightforward manner. So I believe this change is a positive one. The layout of the windows is now much easier to navigate, significantly enhancing the overall software experience. Additionally, Remember that down here at the bottom we will find these minimize windows. Also take note that with the S Pen, it even provides you with a preview of the applications you are currently using. This feature brings you a bit closer to the experience of using a PC, which I must say is quite impressive. It's definitely true that this experience has improved significantly over the last generation. It is anticipated that this update will come to the Galaxy Tab S11 Ultra and certainly to some additional models as well. So, in terms of the operating system's evolution, it definitely has improved quite a lot. If you're not viewing desktops, apps will open as they usually do, on a daily basis in full screen, and that's essentially it with no changes. However, the desktop view is the environment where applications will operate within this windowing scheme. It maintains the existing benefits such as routines, which can be used to automate numerous tasks on your tablet. Additionally, there are Samsung Labs features available, which include options like enforcing a landscape view or enabling dark mode. I believe it's considerably easier to use the S Pen when you are on YouTube, which aligns with the experience we've come to expect from Samsung. However, I truly think that the most appealing aspect of Samsung's tablets is indeed the S Pen and the various things you can accomplish with it. So, what are your thoughts on joining me to explore these options together? Well, actually, some of these functions have already been demonstrated, but I truly want you to see, for instance, how it operates directly with Samsung Notes. The S Pen offers a sensation of a significantly more agile response. Moreover, it has indeed improved in precision. The previous tip could occasionally cause a bit of confusion regarding the position. Seems to me that here it has improved. I remind you that, for example, if you are in Samsung Notes, you can use the integrated button to activate the eraser while it is pressed. The button acts as an eraser, and of course, here you choose the behavior of the eraser. If you want to delete the entire stroke, or just wanted to delete specific areas, you choose here the behavior you want it to have. So it seems to me that the S Pen really provides us with a much more fluid and seamless experience. I insist that when it comes to writing, it will likely perform quite well. Remember, you can rest your entire palm on the screen without experiencing any inconvenience. Furthermore, by pressing the button, you'll notice that we can open this small tool, allowing us to add our favorite brushes or simply edit the brushes that are already predefined. This makes it quite versatile for various tasks. We will also have the ability to change the color here quickly, and to me, this seems like a very good change. This improvement is quite beneficial for quickly altering elements without needing to move your hand. You can change the elements that are available here while you are writing. So, Samsung Notes appears to me to be one of the most useful tools of this tablet, especially since it does not require a subscription or anything of that nature, and when used in conjunction with the S Pen, it works wonderfully. Even if you are projecting your screen, for instance, you might have this tool which functions like a laser pointer, allowing you to highlight very specific elements without needing to alter your note, as it will just vanish. Right here, you have the option to decide whether you prefer it to write or merely act as a pointer, because the S Pen is capable of interacting with the elements on the screen without making contact. You can use it as if you want to make strokes, point it this way. Samsung Notes offers many tools to integrate PDFs, attach images, scan, attach sounds, drawings, and sticky notes. You can even record your class while taking notes, and everything syncs. So, we see a really fantastic function here that allows you to review your notes later, because you'll have the ability to relive the moment just as it was happening in real life. This means you can view the notes, for instance, and watch them animate while you play back the audio of what was occurring at that time. It's truly excellent. Additionally, by the way, there's also an audio eraser feature, which will enable you to remove any unwanted noise if there happen to be a lot of background noise during the class. It is also going to be quite beneficial for you when it comes to artificial intelligence, as it will be directly running on the device. Thus, the S Pen experience with Notes is ideal in that regard. Samsung, if you consider a full 10. Problem now is that the S Pen lacks Bluetooth. You can't use it as a remote control, but you can use the Air command to open the drawing wizard, which will let us quickly create illustrations. For example, let's give it a try and create a camera to see what results we can achieve. I'm going to place this right over here. Or so, and let's put something like that. I do not know if you have identified that it is a camera, this that I want to imagine, but let's press the generate button and automatically the device will transform this simple drawing into something much more sophisticated. If you want to complement your notes, also to decorate them, you might find it interesting. Here is one of the proposals he provided me with. However, I can also include a text to image button here, allowing me to use text for accessing other tools. Additionally, I have the option to change the category, for instance, if I prefer it to resemble pop art, among various other possibilities. The more detailed you make your drawing, the more attractive the final result will be. A lot of it will depend on your skills and expertise. However, here we can see more or less the kind of results that we are able to achieve. And naturally, if you have already created a drawing inside your note, you can also choose here in Galaxy. At the drawing assistant, this way you can simply select the doodle you have made and it will automatically transform it for you. In fact, the option to completely replace it will also be available so that, I must emphasize, you can decorate your notes in a super quick and highly effective manner. Now you can generate various styles, click replace and you're done. This lets you continue taking notes and more. I really like it. All the integration it has. In this side menu, we also have this tool that I had already shown you a moment ago, and we also have an option, for example, to create note here in a floating way. Or you also have the option to write directly on the screen to take a screenshot. This allows you to immediately make some annotations, which is always very handy, especially when reviewing projects or doing similar tasks that require notes. Annotating is very easy on this tablet. In the S Pen settings, note that we can select whether we want this floating menu to be compact only with the icons, or we want it to be the standard one that shows us also texts. Actually, we also have the ability to modify the shortcuts available there. For instance, we can use the S Pen to zoom in or translate the displayed contents or set direct shortcuts to certain applications. Observe, for example, how the magnifying glass functions, which is indeed quite interesting. You also have the option to choose if you want this air command to show up when you press the S Pen button. And additionally, you can decide if you prefer this floating button to be visible at all times or not. For instance, you could hide it easily. Here's the translator function for results with Samsung or Google Translator, and of course, it retains the same features that we have previously seen, such as the ability to write directly in the text fields using the S Pen. For instance, I could select here simply S Pen, and it will automatically convert it to digital text for recognition. This feature works on any text field. Additionally, it retains the tool that allows you to double tap with the hold button, enabling you to start a note right away even when the screen is off. Actually, you can also use this shortcut while the screen is on, allowing you to swiftly begin taking a note without any delay. These are a few of the tools we notice available with the S Pen. However, it still has areas that need enhancement. The removal of Bluetooth is definitely something that bothers certain users. Take Apple, for instance. Even in its most advanced Apple Pencil, it also includes a tilt sensor. This feature is useful because, for example, there are brushes that can alter the stroke style based on the tilt angle. Samsung should improve that. In terms of security, it has a fingerprint reader integrated into the screen. In this case, we are talking about an optical reader. I think that for an ultra tablet this expensive, it would be good to incorporate an ultrasonic reader that are faster and work when you have wet fingers. In this case, it has a simpler reader like the one we see in mid-range phones, so that's why I don't like the quality too much. We're also going to find facial recognition, but only in 2D. It does not have a sophisticated system or anything like that. And well, it integrates several tools that we already know in SAM as a secure folder, which I think is a good element to keep all your private content there and options for remote tracking if you lose it. So I think it is well covered in terms of security. Now, let's take a moment to discuss the battery in more detail, because here we can see a significant evolution compared to the previous generation. The tablet has become thinner, which I believe is an important change to note. The capacity increases from 11,200 mAh to 11,600 mAh. This increase is, in my opinion, quite remarkable in terms of battery capacity. Naturally, it includes both traditional and extreme saving modes for those emergency situations, which I found quite appealing. Let me share my test results. I ran it at full throttle with the processor maxed out, making various requests. And during this test, I experienced a consumption rate of approximately 8% over the course of 15 minutes. Based on that level of consumption, it would translate to roughly 3 hours and 7 minutes of usage, which is quite high. I mean, in practical life, this isn't going to be the case, but it's a test I typically conduct to observe what it would yield under fully demanding conditions. Compared to the last generation, it even seems to last a bit less. But I insist, this is an unrealistic use. You will not experience it in real life. I also did another test, leaving the draining application in the background while watching videos in the foreground. And with this, I reached a consumption of 4% in 15 minutes, which would be more or less a total of 6 hours with 15 minutes. Here I saw an evolution with respect to the last generation that had given 4 hours with 20 minutes. So I think that jump is important in battery life. Already on a more daily basis, but now I also conducted some tests by playing videos. It was interesting because I streamed videos at 60 frames per second on YouTube. Additionally, I streamed videos on Netflix and I also played videos on Netflix with offline content that I had previously downloaded. In each of these three scenarios, it resulted in an approximate consumption of 3% in 30 minutes. Based on that rate of consumption, it would give us around 16 hours and 40 minutes of video playback. So, let's say you want to watch movies during a really long flight, for example. The battery will perform perfectly. You should know that battery life varies depending on your daily usage, but these are roughly the figures I can share with you from the tests I conducted. It now supports 45 watts fast charging. However, the charger is not included in the box, which is definitely bothersome, but using the original charger, it reached 19% with 15 minutes of charging. 38% in 30 minutes and a full charge completed in an hour and 35 minutes, which is 10 minutes quicker than the last generation, despite having the same power. We see some optimization in the experience, but it's still not a fast-loading tablet. I'd have liked at least 50% in 30 minutes, but it's not here. Luckily, it has smart charging and charge lock tools to protect the battery, so it delivers in that aspect. Let's now talk a little bit about the performance that this tablet achieves. Notice that I have several tabs open, none of them are restarting. It integrates the MediaTek Dimensity 9400 processor built on a 3nm process. It is a really very powerful processor. So, in this case, the truth is that it opens up everything very quickly. For example, watch here, I'm going to be opening several applications, just so you can see more or less how smooth it is. There are some apps that I have never opened before, and while they might take a bit longer to load initially, you can see for yourself that the performance is quite good overall. In this particular case, it comes equipped with 12 GB of RAM available in either the 256 or 512 GB versions. And in the 1 TB edition, which I insist is only distributed in some countries, arrives with 16 GB of RAM. You yourself seeing and witnessing that this tablet performs really very well in terms of having multiple applications running at the same time. There is no complication at all in that sense. For those who like benchmarks to gauge power, here are the Geekbench results: 2405 for single core and 8580 overall. Multi-core points. As you can see, it is quite powerful, although it is not the most powerful thing today, but it seems fine to me. In Antutu, it scored 26,45,785 points. So there you have the benchmarks. As for games, it integrates the basic tools that Samsung has integrated all life. This small panel to lock the screen, take screenshots or screen recordings, block accidental gestures locked, auto brightness, Bixby and more to prevent interruptions, but lacks advanced features like those in some Red Magic tablets. However, it does offer more options compared to the iPad. In Call of Duty, by default, it gives us the very high quality at a maximum rate. Note that we can also choose the maximum graphics quality, but if we choose the ultra frame rate, the quality is set to the medium level as it is on all high-end devices. In this case, it is a very good processor because it offers good compatibility at the graphics level, allowing us to enable all visual options. Initially, we prioritize testing for graphic quality, and honestly, it performs exceptionally well. The few low peaks are hardly noticeable because in reality, it only dips to 50%, 8% at its lowest point. As you can see, it maintains an almost flawless performance. Additionally, it stays quite cool thanks to its substantial size, which aids in cooling. Therefore, these games are considerably lacking compared to the power this processor offers. We prioritized refresh rate, and the experience was great at 120 frames per second, offering brutal fluidity. It doesn't heat up much. Last generation hit 90 frames in this test, but this one reaches 120. You can see the evolution in PUBG. Take note that the default graphics quality is set to a balanced level at an extreme rate. However, we managed to increase it all the way up to Ultra HDR, achieving an ultra rate. It's important to mention that it also includes the super fluid option, which enables you to reach ultra extreme levels regarding fluidity. Initially, we prioritized the graphics quality, and it's worth noting that we achieved 40 frames per second with perfect stability throughout. We're not going to see this game become complicated or anything of that sort. In fact, it remains a very basic game, especially considering the power that this processor possesses. Then we prioritize the ultra extreme rate, and interestingly, in this particular case, it was configured to run at 90 frames per second. Honestly, it seems once more that the game doesn't really make it complicated. We were able to get everything to the processor, so here is an issue of lack of optimization of the games. They are not yet able to take advantage of everything. The power provided by this processor. Next, we played Henshin Impact. By default, it runs on high quality, but we increased it to very high with 60 frames per second and set everything to the maximum levels possible. Once again, we observe really excellent performance with an average of 60 frames per second and wonderful temperature control. This game is somewhat more complex, featuring more attractive graphics and special effects, yet it remains accessible. The processor doesn't appear to struggle at all with these contents, which leads me to emphasize that the Android games catalog is already becoming quite limited, given the power these processors offer. After that, we played S11, and note that once more we adjusted everything to the maximum level possible. While some parameters initially were set to the middle level, we gradually increased each of them. Once again, the performance has been completely brutal, running at an average of 60 frames per second. The temperature control is remarkable, maintaining a peak of 35.5 degrees Celsius in the hottest area. This makes it an excellent tablet for gaming. Its performance is impressive, featuring a large screen and surround sound. When you play using a gamepad, the experience is going to be truly very good. It's important to note that we set everything to the highest possible level to really test what this tablet could handle. Curiously, this game turned out to be a bit more challenging. Although in this instance, during a slightly longer gaming session, you can observe, for example, how after playing for a while, the temperature here could indeed take its toll. It reached 43.1 degrees Celsius in the hottest area. Clearly, it's not a temperature you would consider to be a serious issue or anything of that nature. However, if you observe that the performance starts to decrease slightly during extended gaming sessions, especially in these kinds of demanding games, it becomes apparent. Yet the previous generation had managed to average around 42 frames per second, whereas this new generation has achieved an average of 57 frames per second. So we can definitely notice an improvement in the power and performance of this tablet. Next, we play Goodering Waves, raising graphic quality to max, if possible, enabling even some options that are typically turned off by default. We observe once more a very satisfying experience with an average of 60 frames per second. This game is quite complex, but it runs smoothly without major issues, so we won't encounter any difficulties. Finally, we run Bright Memory. Observe that once again we elevated it to the highest settings possible, achieving 120 or 20 frames per second and beyond. However, take note, how curious that in this case it went up to 92 frames per second as its maximum peak. However, it wasn't able to maintain that level as the average was 61. This is still quite good, yet I find it intriguing because the previous generation achieved an average of 112 frames per second. I'm uncertain if the game has been updated to impose more limitations or if there is an optimization problem with this specific processor and this game. I'm not entirely sure, but this is the only content that ran less smoothly compared to the previous generation. So I get the feeling that it is more a matter of optimization of this game than anything else. The truth is that the tablet actually comes with a very powerful processor. Unlike the iPad, which can handle some games with extremely heavy graphics, the Android catalog in this particular case falls a bit short in comparison. In conclusion, I like that it's a thin tablet at 5.1 millimeters, and it's lighter than the previous version, maintaining an exceptional display that now boosts its brightness level to an impressive 1600 nits, complete with an anti-glare finish, ensuring very good visibility even when you're outdoors. The sound quality is also still something quite remarkable, offering a great audio experience. However, among the aspects I did not appreciate is the fact that the keyboard accessory is sold separately, which was somewhat expected, but now only this particular keyboard is available, meaning there are no alternative options as we observed in previous generations. Now, this keyboard is actually the most basic model that Samsung provides. It lacks adjustable tilt settings, and you can't completely detach the keyboard. Additionally, it doesn't come with a trackpad. Therefore, the experience is quite simplified when you compare it to what we experienced in the previous generations of their products. Moreover, the S Pen, since it can no longer be stored on the back, you might end up dropping or losing it, which is something I didn't like either. The redesigned S Pen does look nice, with its new hexagonal shape and fresh tip that's just perfect. However, I would have appreciated if they had kept the feature where you can store it in the back cover. The performance is expected to be really quite good, as it offers good battery life. The tablet operates smoothly and is powerful. In fact, I believe it has more than enough power to meet the demands of many applications available today. I mean, on Android, we still can't really enjoy applications at the level of a PC, like Photoshop or certain PC-level video editors. In that sense, I think the experience falls a bit short when you compare it with an iPad or even a PC, because at this price point, it competes with a PC, or even with Huawei's Harmony OS, where we're already beginning to see some PC-level applications. I believe that's an area where Samsung is truly lagging behind. However, to its credit, it does include Galaxy, for instance, with various functions from its suite and even a specific key on this keyboard that I don't really like. But it allows you to access Gemini directly with just one keystroke. So as you can see, it is a tablet with both advantages and disadvantages. You as the user will decide if it is what you're searching for. For now, we have come to the end of this video. I truly hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, feel free to let us know. And we'll see you.